Hello world. Today I wanted to discuss why you're stuck or why people in general get stuck. Now there's many reasons and they tend to be very exclusive to the individual. It may be things like patterns, right? So you live your life a certain way and it's very comfortable to do the same thing every day, but that also includes negative actions, negative things that kind of go against your goals. So for example, if you're someone who's want to advance in their career and every day, you go to the bother of looking for work, sending out CVs. But what you're failing to do is to further research the roles that you actually want to dive into because either can't be bothered, that's a little too much. I'm certainly guilty of that when I was younger. I remember sending out lots of CVs and I would change this and that on the covering letter, but I would never really look into the role so deeply so that I would essentially want to be part of that company. I would just want the job. And I think sometimes that comes across in the way that your CV is written or resume, depending where you're at. And the way that your cover letter, it becomes almost generic. And nowadays they have AI that probably even cuts you out and sends you a negative result just when it picks up on the fact that you're jumping from job to job and not really making it like a career that you're passionate about. So that's an example of, taking some action, but also not taking the full action needed to have a result. And like I said, it'll vary on the individual and each case is something unique. So feel free on the comments to write, things that you find yourself getting stuck at, and you'll probably even know why you're getting stuck at it. So then the question is, what do you do to move forward and start finding success, start moving forward in action? So although it's natural to not necessarily get your way in everything, right? You're going to have some sense of barrier into anything that you want to do in life. That's not possible to avoid. It's inevitable. That's part of the growth process. That's what really gets you to earn success. The reason we all look up to people that have their stuff together is because whether we think about it or we just get a feeling, we know that it's difficult to acquire success, right? Just give me a second. I'm going to lower the window. Give me a sec before I die. All right, that's better. You may get some background noise, but such is life. It's either that or you'd have me passing out halfway through. It's nice and warm in the UK for a change. Good to see. Of course, everyone complains about it. All right, so the second important thing about that. So the first is realizing that you're going to fail, and that's okay. That's actually probably the most important thing I could share with anyone that's younger, newer to life, is accept that you're going to fail. That's something that school didn't really prepare me for when I was younger, because I found school not easy, but it's something that I could do and manage. So, and even when I got a bad grade here, bad grade there, I didn't feel bad about it. I just moved on. It was fine. But then when you get into the real world, you kind of start to realize failure is something that ends you, right? So if you fail at a business, you can't start a new business the next day because you've likely compromised yourself financially. So in that failure, you put yourself in a bad position. So then, of course, the trick is to either not fail or mitigate your loss so that if it does do badly, you've already kind of protected yourself to allow you to move on to the next business quickly. If that's what you want to do, you might end up going back to work. So that's the most important thing. Accept that failure is part of life. The winners get up, dust themselves off, and try harder, work harder, improve themselves, look to win from that point forward. Everyone else, unfortunately, gives up, feels sorry for themselves. starts finding comfort in things that they shouldn't find comfort in, things that waste their time, waste their energy, and so forth. And like I said, I won't excuse myself from that. I remember when I was younger, I had a small business, didn't do well, and I was laid out on the couch for a good week feeling sorry for myself, and there wasn't time for that, you know, and it wasn't, looking back at it, I'm like, wimp. You know, the right thing to have done is to just kind of said, okay, what have I learned from that? Okay, I'm not doing that again. I'm not doing it that way again. I'm going to move forward as quickly as possible. What am I moving forward to? And ideally, some people say don't have a plan B. I don't quite agree with that. I think that's great if your plan A works out. But I would imagine for all the people that have had a successful plan A, there's X amount more that had an unsuccessful plan A. And if they didn't have a plan B, where are they now? You're not necessarily going to hear about them. They might say, oh, I didn't have a plan B. That went hard. All right. So then step 2, important thing, you're not allowed to quit, right? So even when failure comes, quitting is not an option. That doesn't mean you have to continue with that thing that isn't working out for you. It means you have to look for something else that will move you forward. The business, for example, first business didn't work. Either, you know, the one I had was restaurant related. It was food related. So the food was popular and everything, but the money side wasn't being done properly. I could have sold things for a higher price and so on, right? So that doesn't work out. Do you just jump back into food right away? Maybe not. Maybe you should look into it and actually realize food is very difficult to succeed at. Even when you succeed over time, the next big restaurant's coming out, so you're going to get shadowed sooner or later. So maybe the best thing to do is to avoid food altogether. Now that's, you know, you can take that advice whichever you want, but statistics back me up on that food business is incredibly difficult to succeed at. You can succeed at it, especially if that's your passion. That's, you know, I can understand that. But let's say it doesn't work out for one reason or another, then you need to have a plan B to move on from it in the most efficient way possible. And consider that even the smallest of steps are important. Even the smallest of steps will move you forward. And every little step does matter if it's going in the right way. If it's going in the opposite way, then yeah, they matter as well, but in the wrong ways. So it's important during all that to believe in yourself. Yeah, don't give up on what you want to do in life simply because it's hard, simply because it didn't go your way the first time. Lesser people have achieved more, right? So that's something I want everyone to remember. Lesser people have achieved more. And that's not to put down anybody, but what I mean is people that you may think, oh, that guy's not very qualified in that. How did he become the expert in this? That guy didn't have a lot of luck. How did, he luck out on this? That guy didn't even know what he was doing initially, but very quickly learned, and moved forward. That person had physical ailments. They had illness and so forth, back problems, yet they managed to do these incredible things. This person didn't have a lot of time, and yet they still managed to achieve that goal in 6 months, right? You've heard all the stories from different people, different creators, different famous people where they found success. It's because they have this sense of believing in themselves and they won't quit, right? And that's really important in life. So it's also important to understand why. So why are you doing this? And if the reason you're doing this is for something that's a little bit, something that doesn't really hold a lot of weight or value to you internally, such as, so I know money matters to everyone. Money is important. Money is something that drives us all. But at the same time, we can all agree that sometimes money is not the end-all be-all of things. Sometimes you're not going to give up money to damage your reputation. You're not going to give up money, or you're not going to give into money to damage your reputation. You're not going to do things that you don't find palatable for money, right? And it could be anything. It could be legal stuff, illegal stuff. It could be something that you just don't find tasteful. The type of work, let's say you have the possibility of being a pushy salesperson and it doesn't jive with you. You know, you just don't like phoning people out of nowhere, bothering them hanging up on you. That's not for you. There's nothing wrong with that, right? So in that scenario, the end all be all is not money, right? The end all be all is being happy with the work that you do, right? So that's your why. Your why becomes incredibly important, because in the dark and hard nights where things aren't going well, that why will keep you going much more so than money. So those are the main 5 points. If any questions, put them down in the comments. As always, you know, let me know what you're thinking. And like I said, put down things that you're struggling with, how you've overcome them. That's ideal. You've overcome them. That's great. Or why you're not overcoming it. And like I said, likely you know why it's not happening for you, right? So then it's letting me know, do those 5 steps help you to actually, will they help you to move forward if you stick to it and you kind of drive forward relentlessly? Let me know. All right? All the best.